Second viewer question of the day. So, one of the 5 Buddhist principles says not to kill. Does that include roaches and other disgusting creatures that don't belong on this planet? Are there any exceptions to these rules? What's the purpose of these principles? They're obviously not a guide to becoming a good person. Good people steal, kill, lie, do drugs. Or do they? How do you interpret these principles? So, this is a really good question because the question is an output of this, like, you're curious about this, right? Which means that you are thinking about this, and which means you are trying to apply it into your life, and you are coming up with realistic objections. And that flame of questioning, right, is what really gets you closer to the truth inside of you. So that's why I'm going to start out with the fact that your questioning of these is excellent. Okay, with that said, these questions ultimately arise because I am not teaching you Buddhism in a structured manner in this YouTube channel. This YouTube channel is largely about Buddhism, but I don't do like a Buddhist seminar on, all the concepts in order, right? So let's invest a little bit of time into explaining how these principles came out. Like, what's the point of these, right? Okay, so Buddha, through a lot of the same questioning that you do, in his 6 years of significant torment, in his many years of quiet contemplation inside the palace, and the 7 weeks of meditation he did after coming out of the suffering, intentional suffering, Buddha through this really passionate search for what? What is the way to not suffer at all? Because it always seems like feeling good and avoiding suffering always has a cost, always has a price tag. So it always seems like there's this loop. In order for me to be happy today, I have to be miserable tomorrow. What is a way? There has to be a way of avoiding this cycle. And that is what Buddha was so intent on finding, right? And he found the answer, the middle way. And now, he looked at all the ways of suffering and generalized it into 3 categories. One is desire. I want to be pretty, I want to be rich, I want to blah blah blah, I want to marry that guy, I want to kill that guy, whatever, like, desire. Number 2 is anger and being, like, consumed by passion, right? When an emotion arises, you getting, like, just completely swept up by it, and then you basically going blind, you losing all reason because the threat, what is it, fight or flight kicks in, and you basically lose control of your mind and you go full animal. And that's the umbrella term, is that, like, anger. And third is kind of ignorance, or I call it silliness, because ignorance sounds just like, oh, you're stupid, but it's just basically being silly, right? So a good example of ignorance is like grief, right? Because why? When you think about it, everyone has to die, right? It's a guarantee. You have to die because you're born. But when it comes time for you to die, it feels so bad, right? When your death is imminent. Because why? You want to, like, live forever. That's the greed coming up, like desire coming up. But at the same time, like, why be angry at the fact that something you knew for a really long time, right? So it's like, I borrow money and then I get really sad because I have to pay it back. That's literally what borrowing is, right? I try to eat food and then I get sad because I have to swallow. That's what eating is, right? Or like I drink and then I have to go pee and that makes me suffer. Like, these are just ridiculous examples, but basically, when you know, yet you engage in this, when you know better, but you act not better, that's what's called sort of silliness, right? So these 3 things are the root of all suffering. And in order to counter these, Buddha provided alternatives to each one of these, right? And so, the desire part is restraint. Don't engage in every like desire that you get, because why? It ultimately leads to suffering. For anger and consumption, Buddha recommended calmness of the mind, basically meditation, and not letting the fight or flight response take over your brain. And number three, for that ignorance, he recommended like in constant questioning and acquisition of knowledge, and basically being more wise, acting more wise, knowing better and acting better. So these are kind of the history of what Buddha taught overall in general. So how did the five kind of principles come in play? Five principles are kind of related to the restraint part. So I want to kill you because you're really annoying to me. But when I kill you, what happens? But before we get to that, I need to explain something about karma too. It's easy to think that certain actions are unilaterally good and certain actions are unilaterally bad. So, for example, killing someone is unilaterally bad. But what's the popular alternative to that? What if it's Hitler, right? And helping a person is seen as unilaterally good, right? But what if you are helping out of your self-vanity rather than this person's like request for help? Then you would feel like really angry if that other person doesn't, respect the fact that you gave, right? So basically, it's like a fake charity, right? And so you can see, the more you contemplate, the more you will find that nothing is objectively and unilaterally of one quality. Therefore, what I mean is, even if I kill a person, that can be good in a certain perspective, that can be bad in a certain perspective, right? Okay, so if I steal something, that can be good in some perspective, that can be bad in another perspective, right? So what's the point? Let's just live like animals, right? Okay, but now, if you are watching my YouTube video, right? But suppose I use these videos to scam you. I use these videos and I tell you, and I say, hey, donate to me. I'm gonna, use it to a really good cause. And then suppose I take your donations and then I go to a strip bar and then you find out that I was blowing all your money in a strip bar and getting wasted, whatever, right? What's likely to happen because of those types of actions? Probably something that doesn't really end up making it easy for me to feel good, right? But suppose you donate money to me and I funnel that money to causes that I think are very important to me, and then now I get to tell you, hey, last month YouTube, thanks to your donations, I collected like $1,000 and I was able to hand this off to the St. Jude Children's Hospital, and I personally gave it to like some families going through really financial hardships, and then I can interview them and then whatever, right? And now, what's likely to be the output in response to those actions? Are people going to be angry at me? Maybe somebody will be, right? Why didn't you help other causes? Maybe something like that will happen. But now, overall, right? Based on my actions, it makes some reactions more highly probable, right? If I slap you, what's the chance of you slapping me back? Think about that, right? Suppose that's X%. Suppose I give you a hug. Now, think of the possibility of you slapping me back. Think of the probability difference between those two scenarios, right? Again, there's a chance that I can hug you and you can slap me back. Again, there's a chance I can slap you and you can hug me back. But what I'm saying is, certain actions invite certain reactions by chance and probability. Yeah? Okay. So, through Buddhism, through wisdom, through restraint, through meditation, I can find inner peace. Other people can kill me. Other people can steal from me. Other people can sexually assault me. Other people can lie to me. Other people can get wasted against me. When I am not suffering, I am able to detach from all of that. And I can be okay. But that doesn't mean everybody else is, right? Oh, I don't care if you steal from me, so I'm gonna steal from you. That doesn't work like that. Okay, so now certain actions invite certain reactions, and I can be okay regardless of what happening because I am a practicing Buddhist and I can use the wisdom of the Buddha. I can restrain, I can meditate, and I cannot be consumed by suffering. That doesn't mean that other people are. And so, because other people, right, deserve to have some level of protection from me. Just because I'm okay with things doesn't mean that I am free to do it to other people, because these actions have a tendency to invite karma that negatively affects other people. Again, it's not absolutely bad, but statistically and chance-wise, it is highly likely to cause suffering to other people, especially if they are not enlightened in the Buddhist ways, and moreover, that has a chance of incurring negative karma, or karma that negatively affects my life, or if I'm being really exact, karma that is challenging for me to take as neutral. Okay, so obviously, I can not suffer if other people kill me. But would I prefer to live? Yes, right? So, don't kill other people. If someone steals from me, I can be okay, right? But if I steal from another person, that can be like not that great experience for them, right? So, basically, these restraints are safeguards for other people and to protect you from future suffering that comes from these actions, because yeah, every action has an equal kind of a reaction, kind of like Newton's third law. But these 5 actions tend to invite a lot of reactionary karma. And so Buddha says, it's not like, don't fucking do that. It's like, these are my recommendations on what not to do as a practicing Buddhist. And so, that's basically the grander context around how to interpret these principles. Okay, so, now, roaches and disgusting creatures that don't belong on this planet. That is, again, assuming that there is a quality called disgusting. And that assumes that there is an inherent quality called belonging on this planet, right? But do we belong on this planet? We did so much environmental damage, and from other animals that went extinct because of humans, don't we not belong on this planet? Cockroaches are disgusting to us, but to chickens they're like really great sources of, protein, right? And I've seen in my backyard, corpses of cockroaches being transported by ants to eat. And so to ants, cockroaches are like feasts, right? And to entomologists who researches bugs, they're not really disgusting, right? They're just biological things, and that they help us trace back to the root of life and how evolution may take us into the future by studying the effects of evolution in the past, right? So, of course, when you kill an ant, like, is it going to incur a lot of karma? Like, immediately? Are you gonna get crushed by a giant, like, the next day? Probably not, right? Okay, but when you become the kind of person who kills other things with ease, guess what's naturally going to happen? You're gonna find it kind of not that big of a deal to kill maybe a grasshopper next time. And when you get used to killing grasshoppers, you're probably gonna get used to killing centipedes and some smaller animals. And then when you get used to killing some small animals, because like hey, like it's basically the same as an ant, you're acclimating, you're getting used to the act of taking life not preciously. And that is what ultimately evolves into a mode of thinking that devalues life. That's where industrialization of cattle come in, right? All the chickens, all the cows inside this little coop and little cage, and all they're doing is just they're not being treated like lives. They're just like machines, bio machines. Same with all the other kind of like industrialized cattle, right? Which is why the organic movement, which is why the cage-free eggs, these things are emerging, because a lot of people are seeing, "Oh, man, like eggs are great, but is this really what we're doing to our children? We're so distanced from the root of our food." Because why? It all starts out with these simple devaluings of life. And that can have really, really big ramifications. Deforestation, making species go extinct, like microplastics into the ocean. Why do these things happen? Because why? Littering is so easy and convenient, right? But why is it easy? Because you got used to throwing smaller things around first. And you saw ants, and you saw all these bugs like struggling, but then you're a kid, you play with bugs, and then I remember a lot of my neighborhood kids doing that too, right? But that all gets us used to playing God, being more omnipotent, and not valuing the preciousness of life. And so that's how all of this connects. And I hope this kind of a bigger discussion illuminates some more dark places of the where you might be curious around. But again, it's always good to be inquisitive and question your sources of knowledge. And you're free to do that anytime. So if you have any questions, you can drop by my Discord channel. You can email me at billy@julylifecoach.com. Leave me a comment on this video, and I'm happy to answer to the best of my knowledge.